Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Sales Entrepreneur Podcast. I am Daniel McComber, and with me today is Justin Prince. He is an entrepreneur, he's a speaker, he's an author. His new book recently is Be the One that you can find on Amazon. But at heart and in his beginnings, he was a salesman. He's done over $2.4 billion in sales, and he started many different sales companies. His recent company is a peptide company. We spent a lot of time talking about that, and we really dive into what sales representatives and entrepreneurs can do to level up in their own lives. So I'm excited for you guys to listen to this episode. Holy cow. I'm glad we can make this work. The first question I have is just, you're at a point in your life where you can literally do anything. You've had companies, you've exited from companies. Why are you staying in the direct to sales space? That's kind of crazy, doesn't
it? First of all, it's a fair question. I've actually asked myself the same question, like, what are we going to do the rest of your life,
Yeah.
Let me start by saying this. I feel like our country is in the need of a leadership revolution, particularly for the next generation of leaders in our country. There's been kind of like an underneath of chaos, in the leadership of our country. And so I was going to just kind of head into just deeper and down the coaching and speaking and author and just that world.
Yeah, because that's taking off.
Yeah, and so for me though, it was really like if I built a huge community of people, because in my world we have part of my passion is creating economic opportunity for people.
Oh, okay.
And so if I sold widgets into Walmart and made a ton of money, had a great life, I would have a hole in my heart, because I want to like help other people. That's part of how I became who I've become. Right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to create economic opportunity for people. I also wanted to see if I wanted to see if I could create a huge community of people where I could pour leadership values and principles into them. Because if you're going to go change the world, it ultimately starts with you. It's the Gandhi idea of like, be the change you wish to see.
Right.
And so it's like helping someone to be the one they're born to be, helping someone to be the best version of themselves. So if I helped you to do that, that's how you strengthen the home, right? Strong dads, strong moms, get the house in order. You strengthen the home. That's how you strengthen the local community. That's like the next generation of our school teachers and our firefighters and our police officers and our employees and our entrepreneurs and the folks that run churches and charities. Like starts in the home and then it reciprocates into the communities.
Yeah.
Then once you strengthen the communities, that's how you strengthen ultimately the country and ultimately change the world. And so that to me was creating economic opportunity, and then also creating a value and principle-based leadership revolution were really things that fired me up to do it again.
Heck yeah. Well, honestly, I 100% agree with you that leadership right now is just lacking.
Yeah.
And a lot of my followers are like in the sales space. So whether it be, door-to-door sales or software sales, doesn't matter. What at least I've noticed, just being in the industry for 10 years, is that there was this huge boom around door-to-door years and years ago. A lot of these big companies kind of created these amazing leaders and trainers. But as soon as, people started moving away from these big companies and starting their own thing, the salesmen and the sales trainers didn't kind of transfer that leadership to their guys. And I feel like over the past, not generations, but almost generations of salespeople, it's just kind of fallen out. I don't know. Is that something you've noticed in your industry as well?
Yeah. So first of all, the short answer is yes. I think in my industry, it's like COVID was a big boom. Not for every company, but for a lot of companies, COVID was a big boom. And so you had a lot of earners, but not a lot of leaders.
Yeah.
People were like earning dollars, like the marketplace was ripe to earn some dollars.
Yeah.
And so what happened is people are making some money, but they're not building any emotional maturity and emotional stability underneath it, and like a lot of leadership capacity. So that's a double part problem. Problem one is they don't have the leadership challenges. So in other words, when things soften or they don't have the emotional maturity to handle it.
Yeah.
But then the second problem is they're the ones that have been propped up because of their earners to lead everybody else. And so it's like the training gets negative going down, So I do think, and that's, again, we're talking very micro in our industries. I think as a country, we need to really strengthen this next generation of leaders in the country, at large as well. So I think it's a dual issue.
In your new book, Be the One, you talk about that. You talk about the idea of hey, don't just try to like look for things to possibly make money, look for things to do. It's like be the leader, become that person.
Yes.
Right. And so what are some of like the highlights that you think people could do to become the leader?
Yeah. So the book is Be the One. Two quick concepts to consider. Number one is you're already the one. So if you think about your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents and your great-great-grandparents, so if you go up 12 generations was 4,094 people. So 4,094 people from all over the world came together to create you.
Wow.
And so you are the one. Like you are the one these people lived for, bled for, cried for, died for, gave everything they had for, is for you to have this moment, this life, right?
Yeah.
And so success is an identity process, and you're never going to outperform the way you see yourself.
Yeah.
And so when you realize, like, yo, I'm the one.
Yeah.
Like I went and spoke up at the South Summit jail about a week and a half
Oh,
ago.
I saw that on your Instagram. Yeah.
Freaking just crazy experience.
I mean, there was at least like 100 dudes there or something.
Yeah. There's probably about 40,
Oh, okay.
40 or so. But
I guess the rest of the guys I saw were like guards and stuff.
Yeah. So one of the sergeants up there hit me up on Instagram. She's it's funny. She's a small little gal. She's really an amazing woman. She goes, I didn't think you would even. I just like didn't even think you'd even respond to this, let alone come up here. And so to go and look at these men who are incarcerated, they don't have their freedoms right now, and to say, yo, you're the one, and your life has value and purpose and meaning. You're not here by accident, and your decisions do matter. It's one thing for me to say it to you, who's got a freaking tiger by the tail in your life, but to go say it to these guys that have really been through some serious stuff.
Yeah.
It's to remind yourself that I got to step into who I was born to be, right? Tell people you're not who you are who you're born to be. And you're not what you did, but you are what you repeatedly do. So in other words, you are your habits, you are your patterns. We all make mistakes. We all don't show up as our best self.
Absolutely.
So we aren't what you did, but you are what you repeatedly do over time. So that's the first thing is once you recognize, yo, I'm the one.
Yeah.
Take that ownership of your life. You leave the victim mentality. You leave the world owes me something mentality. You're like, I'm the one. I'm going to go make something. The second part is to be. So be, as you would imagine, is not become. So it's like you already are the one.
Yeah.
It's to be the one you're born to be. So be the one means live today as if you're that one. Like start doing the behavior. So the word decision is a Latin word. The scission meant to cut, and the D meant off. So when they created incision, the incision cut in, and a decision cut off. So think about it this way. You come up to a moment of your life, you make a decision to go left. You cut off all possibilities of going right because you made decisions, right? So like you and I, every decision we've ever made our whole life, everyone listening right now, every decision we've ever made in our whole life has put us in this conversation right now.
Yeah.
Like you and I made appointments in our life to be here right now,
Yeah.
right? And I tell people you've never been this old before and you'll never be this young again. So you can't always control in life what happens, but you can control what happens next because you can make a decision right now to say I'm going to be the one.
Well, in both of those, what I like is that there's always time. It sounds like what you're saying is, you are the one and you can step into that. It doesn't matter how old you are and what you've done in your past. And then the second idea is it's like an obligation almost that you need to be doing.
100%.
Yeah.
So I went to, when I was 29, I went and spoke. I toured through on a kind of like a speaking circuit, if you will.
Yeah.
Through,
At 29, that's how old I am, by the way.
Oh,
so
cool.
that's pretty awesome.
So when I was your age, 29 years old, had two little kids. I'm trying to think of my little girl. Yeah, I would have had 3 little kids.
Yeah.
And I went and spoke in Moscow, Omsk, Russia, and Almaty, Kazakhstan.
Dang. Okay.
Through this tour. And, you go through the former Soviet Union. The Soviet Union went from 1921 to 1991, so for 70 years. 70 years is basically a generation, right? Someone's life.
And just to give you a little bit of context, my wife is from Slovakia.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I served my mission in the Czech Republic.
No kidding.
So, very.
So you'll know this history.
I love that.
So for that reign, from 1917 when the Bolshevik Revolution started, 21 and then 91, you could dream a dream, but you couldn't pursue a dream. There was no private ownership. No. It was all owned by the state. And so here we are in the United States, and I tell people, I'm like, yo, breathe in. They go, I'm like, cool. Smell that? Do you know what that smells like? That smells like political freedom and economic opportunity.
Yeah.
And in the United States, not only do you have the right to pursue it, man, you have the responsibility to pursue it. Like you're the one, like all these 4,094 people from all over the world came together to create you. Like your life has, like you got to go for it, dude.
Yeah.
So your playing small doesn't serve the world. You got to like make things happen, make commitments, own your life, own your decisions, and go live a significant life. So you really do grow into and be and act as if you're the one you were born to be.
I love that. Well, honestly, when people are kind of thinking small-minded, or people come to me for advice, and they're obviously like a lot of self-doubt, a lot of negative talking about them kind of taking steps forward into something they want to do, I'm like, I honestly want to tell them, take some time and travel. Get out of your head, get out of your space, because something I've learned from living 2 years in the Czech Republic and spending a lot of time in Eastern Europe with my wife, not only is it just the fact that you could breathe the air, but it's like people don't understand the fact that you have people around you who are in the same mindset as you. And I don't care if like your parents are very negative, or if your people like in your direct surroundings are like, oh, you can never do, doesn't matter. You can go to the gas station.
100%.
You can have a random conversation with someone and they'd be like, hey, that is a great idea. You should do that. That's unheard of in places where we're talking about, where it's like, not only is the mindset so kind of clouded, it can be, I should say, can be so clouded over there, but the idea of ambition is so against the norm that you'll be put down by everyone almost in your surroundings. Here, if you're lacking a little bit of conviction, go pitch your idea or go talk to somebody random. If you talk to enough people on the street, just because of the way our nation is, you'll get confidence or you'll get positive feedback, but it's something you can't get anywhere else in this world. I really feel like.
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln said, I'm a success today because I had a friend who believed in me and I didn't have the heart to let him down. Sometimes all we need is just someone to believe in you, someone to say, yo, you got this. There's that old Bible story of David and Goliath.
Yeah.
And so everyone thinks that David went after Goliath because he was so brave. No, dude. The Bible says all Israel fled. So Goliath read this speech, and everyone's like, yo, I'm out of here, including David. They all threw down their weapons and ran away because he was too intimidating. And over that campfire that night, he heard some guards that said, have you heard the reward for the man that kills Goliath? And that's when David's like, what's the reward? And it's like, he'll be a prince. He'll marry the princess. He'll ride on a horse. He'll own land. He'll never pay taxes. His family will never pay taxes. All of a sudden, he's like, wait, what is this? So as that happened, his brother Eliab came and shot him down. He's like, dude, you're a sheep herder. Like, what? Like, okay, you saw some guards in the uniforms. Like, okay, good for you.
Yeah.
What was interesting, though, is guess what he did? It says he turned from him, his brother, to another. And he found someone else that would believe in the vision, someone else that would believe in the dream, that he could be a prince, that he could own land, that he could ride on a horse, that he could marry the princess. Yeah. And he started focusing more on the dream than the drama. So it's so interesting when you read the story, because he starts going around to these guards and he's like, how tall is Goliath? Like, how far can he throw? Or I'm so sorry. What he did is what most of us would have done is, how tall is Goliath? How far can he throw the spear? We had to focus more on the drama. Yeah. What he did is he said, tell me more about the princess. Oh. Tell me more about how this all works. Like, he wanted more of that dream and the vision. And some of the people are like, yo, I think you could go try it. You go do it. So there's a lot of power of getting around people that say you've got what it takes, even though in his case he's just a little boy. He's just a 15-year-old kid. Wow. So there's a lot of power in getting around people that believe in you and tell you that you can.
Only Justin Prince could take something I said and almost exactly give me a perfect story that emulates what I just said. That was phenomenal. And honestly, it kind of goes back to when we met in Lake Powell for the first time. You came and spoke to our group, right? And you brought your family with you. It was that was such an amazing thing to see you and your kids. I think they were there for like a birthday party or something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, when I had a chance to talk with you for a second, I said, hey, I want to start public speaking. What's like the best thing I could do? And you literally said, learn how to tell stories. Because people can learn more through stories than anything else. Yeah. And when you said that, I initially thought of like Jesus Christ, for example, and parables and all the things that he taught. And so I thought that was really interesting. And since then, I've done a couple of public speaking gigs.
Good for you.
And I've applied that. And holy cow, is it just profound? It sounds so simple, but at the same time, learning how to tell a good story and learning how to tell it so that way people can learn from it. Yeah. It didn't come easy. I had to put a lot of thought and time into it. And so I'm just curious, like more on how have you developed that skill so good, so well?
First of all, man, I appreciate that, and good for you, freaking applying that. That's so powerful. So, let me give you the concept first, and then I'll share with you some strategies that I've done. So the first thing is every story should have a point, and every point should have a story.
Okay.
So like when you're trying to make a point in a speech, now you'll have some speeches that like an investor pitch, for example, where you're using a lot of logic, and that's fine. Like even in sales pitches, sometimes like, all right, so you're spending this much. If you do this, you'll spend this much. It's very logical.
Very solar sales, for example,
which is great.
Super
which is great.
logical.
A lot of logical in your pitch. That's really good. But remember, people buy on the emotion, and the emotion comes from the stories. When you're resolving concerns, great question. When so-and-so thought the same thing, this is what they thought. And so you're telling stories.
Yeah.
But every story has a point. Every point is a story. What happens to a lot of people is they start telling stories, and you're just like, I don't even know what we're talking about right now. And they never land the plane with a really clear point.
Right.
So when you're building your points, you want to tell really good stories. I'll give you an example. If I told you that whole David and Goliath story, I'll use that one just because you brought it up.
I love it.
I could probably think of off-ramps. Like, here's your story, and you can have off-ramps here, then you come back to the story, and then you have off-ramps and make this point, come back to the story, and this point.
Yeah.
I probably could have 10 really killer off-ramps, really killer points.
Yeah.
And but I would only use 3 of them for this thing. This thing, I want them to know this. Who are you hanging out with? Who are you listening to? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? But then I could have other off-ramps over here. So sometimes the same story
could be used.
You can use different. You can navigate different points from the same story. You just off-ramp different spots of the story, right? And you can even come back to it. So every point should have a story. Every story should have a point. Second thing I'd share with you is this: when you're teaching, try and think through stories. I'll give you someone who's great at this online. You guys can watch is Patrick Bet-David. He owns like Valuetainment, so you can go look him up.
Okay.
So whenever you watch him, particularly on a podcast, he almost every answer will be a story.
Oh.
And so, he'll give some answers like yes, no, and some facts and
simple
percentages
ones,
and so on, quotes and so on. But he's a really good storyteller. And you want to start to hone that down, particularly in your sales skills. Selling is storytelling.
Yeah.
All of the great plays and books and all of the great movies and all of the great the Bible is a compilation. Bible means the book of books. It's a compilation of 66 books, which are what? They're just telling a whole bunch of really impactful stories that people study, both Jews and Christians and people from all over the world. Yeah. And when you do that, you anchor in the remembrance for people. They can remember the story and they can remember that point, the anchor down. So you want to cut out as many so what's as possible. So what's would be like, when you're like, and then I was driving down the street and I looked over and I saw Chick-fil-A, and then I was over here and I liked Chick-fil-A, and they're just like, what? Unless that drives to something, then just cut that out. It's all this so what does that mean? Just cut all that stuff out, and so you just tell the story. You shave it down to where all you need to know is this to make the point.
And so when you're practicing trying to shave things down and so forth, make sure, do you practice that on, and I guess maybe going back to like when you first started out, kind of storytelling and sales and so forth, were you kind of practicing on people, or just were you really closely paying attention during sales? Were you like recording yourself?
Yeah, great question. So I do all of the above.
Okay.
Before I do presentations, and again, I would do the same thing in a sales preparations standpoint. So Churchill was one of the great orators of all time. They said Churchill would prepare for every 1 minute he spoke for an hour.
Wow.
So an hour in preparation for every 1 minute spoke. Now, when you're doing sales, you want to get this thing I love about salespeople. And this is my challenge for all of you salespeople. You want to get razor sharp. Like, you don't have a lot of ums and pauses and goofy stuff. And then when they say, so what, I need to talk to my spouse, or I need to think about it. You're just so smooth on that next transition. And how do you, the top 15 pauses or objections, how do you handle those? Or the main questions, how do you talk about price and program? You have it so smooth.
Yeah.
Get with the very best people that are the smoothest and like literally record them and then learn to say it. Because what happens is you first will say it the way they say it. You basically, in essence, parrot. You mentor under them.
Okay.
But then you get to a point where you start to have your own flow and your own rhythm of kind of how to do it. But I would record it. I'd get with the best people. I was a preparer. I still am. I don't hope speeches go well.
Yeah.
If
you have a doubt of hope or anything,
no,
that's
hope's
just
not a strategy.
Yeah, no.
You want to have that stuff dialed to where you know what you're going to talk about, and you're going to get up there, and you're prepared. The more, a lot of times we think, I don't want to overscript myself because then I won't be natural or whatever.
Sure.
It's the flip on a stage.
Okay.
The more prepared you are, the more your personality can come out. Because you're not wondering like, crap, what's next? And where did I just come from? You're just like, I got this content so freaking down that like I can like really pour into these people, listen, ask questions, engage with the audience, know where I'm going next. And so that's what I would share with you is like, man, get your skills so tight. So I'll give you an example. You should know how long stories take to tell.
Oh,
Is it like, is that a 1 minute story, 30-second story, or a 5 minute story?
Yeah.
And if it's 5, it better be pretty compelling because 5 minutes is a long time for someone to listen.
Yeah.
So you can have like little 30-second or little 40-second or little 27-second, like that Churchill one.
Yeah.
Churchill hour in preparation. That's a 15-second story,
And
but it makes the
huge
point.
impact,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Anytime you can bring history in,
Yes.
someone who's influential,
Yep.
that's a super
Validate
impactful.
your point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in sales, just because I've been doing it for so long, I will literally, I mean, I guess I have stories and jokes, but at the same time, if I look at them, they're really just stories that I tell in a very funny way. Depending on the type of personality that I'm
Yes.
pitching. Now, on a stage, you have to have things so dialed because you don't know how your audience is going to react,
Yeah.
right? When I was in Augusta, I was speaking to a group full of doctors, and they wanted to learn more about asset protection. And the company that I contracted for, they gave me the script, and I'm reading through it. I'm like, holy cow, this is the driest thing I've ever seen. Doctors and dentists, and everything, they're used to sitting in conferences, and it's like super dry, just information. So I just packed a bunch of jokes in there. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to be as serious or come across as like very formal as some of the other speakers, but heck, I'm going to entertain them because this is something completely different than what they're listening to all day. I could have been a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
I can't do
skill.
stand-up comedy, but holy cow, I just knew the industry so well. I knew the doctors so well because of the different experience I had. And I just knew if I hit a joke at this point, they're going to laugh, but they're going to remember that joke and the little piece of information that I gave with them. With that joke, and holy cow, did I not kill it? And we got lots of sales from it. So I tell my guys as well when I train them, I'm like, man, if you're not catering your stories and your presentation to the person that you're talking to, maybe if they're a super analytical person, you're not packing it full of jokes. Okay, maybe you're just giving information in a very curious and interesting way with stories combined. And so with public speaking, I know that that's very difficult because you have a huge stage, but you're still able to manage to over prepare.
Same thing. So the buying mood's a happy mood. So if you're selling door to door, you're selling to doctors, you're selling from a stage. It's not a stressed out mood. It's not a super intense mood. It's a happy mood. If you can get people to smile and to laugh and to, just enjoy, in other words, it's a little bit entertaining.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to mean you're goofy, but just it's a light mood. The buying mood's a happy mood. The buying mood is not like a high pressure, stressful mood.
Yeah.
And so great sales professionals can put people at ease. They can make them smile, even with the stupid joke that's really not funny, but it's kind of like, it's so cliche or it's so, they hear it and they go, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
And then you move to the next thing. Those things are that is great art, dude. That is a skill. I love that.
Yeah, I like how you said art too, because it really is like ebbing and flowing. You got to like take what you can get. Improv almost, I like to call it.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, kind of pivoting a little bit, you've recently launched a new company, Make Wellness.
Yeah.
And first of all, the fact that it's in the health space that it is, with you being an advocate for it, phenomenal idea. I mean, you're very healthy. You've been a proponent of physical health, spiritual health, intellectual health, emotional health for a long time. And I think coupling your strengths with this idea of peptides and overall wellness is such a great fit. I guess when you first announced it a few weeks ago, because I've been following you forever, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And so I'm excited to see that. I'm curious, how has the journey been starting from scratch, like starting anew?
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's not for the faint of heart, for sure. Entrepreneurship is not easy. When I was kind of debating what I wanted to do the rest of my life, I once wanted to create economic opportunity, wanted to create a value and principle-based leadership revolution, but also in the health and wellness space, it's not easy to find blue ocean products. A little bit, it's like my stick pack's better than yours, my multivitamin's better than yours.
Yeah.
It's a little, my energy drink's got more energy than your energy drink. It's just a little bit like mine's better than yours.
Yeah.
And that's not a great market position where you're just, it's a Blue Ocean, if you remember the book, is just talking about like it's red ink. It's like the slash cut. It's almost like a race to the bottom of like ours is less expensive. That's how you start to position yourself. Blue Ocean is where you just own the whole space,
Yeah.
So I was introduced to peptides. So when you hear about peptides, first of all, peptide's a small chain amino acid. And it's part of, it talks to the longer chain amino acids, which ultimately turn into your protein. Protein is the building block of your whole body, right? And these peptides are unbelievable. So I was introduced to them about 3 years ago with a lab out of Miami. They do like a bunch of the UFC fighters, former president's family, that whole
Well,
thing.
3 years ago, it still hadn't like kind of hit its
For sure,
boom yet.
100%.
So you hear peptide and people had no idea really what it
Yeah,
was.
innovations typically go from like the fringe, like fringe athlete, the guy that can run 100 miles, or the fringe nerd tech guy that just has these freaking crazy ideas and he's so good at executing, and all of a sudden it turns into something huge. Goes from like the fringe to the billionaires, they get access to it first, to the millionaires, to the masses.
Wow.
And peptides are kind of in that, they're still in kind of that millionaire stage. People are like, I think I've heard of them.
Yeah.
But most peptides that you're hearing about today are what's called therapeutic peptides.
Okay.
So a therapeutic peptide is a synthetic chemical compound. So they synthetically create a chemical compound that's mainly run through injection.
Okay.
And and by the way, I think there's a ton of benefits and health research.
Sure.
I think with this new administration, there'll be more and more and more of this stuff coming to the market.
Yeah.
Right? Less regulations. And more
There's been a lot of regulations around it, hasn't there?
a ton.
Yeah.
And even more as of last fall for those therapeutics, the injections.
Really?
What we looked into and what we're really bringing to market is what's called bioactive peptides. This is a big deal.
Yeah.
So we've partnered with research labs around the world that are, one of them specifically is kind of on the cutting edge of all this research, but they've been at this for just under 10 years and have just under $100 million of venture capital money invested in their lab.
That sounds like a huge number, but it's not that big of a number, I guess.
For the research they're doing, it's those big funds that invest in stuff like this, those investors are not stupid. They kind of are like, we see where this is going.
Okay.
So these groups are using artificial intelligence data platforms that they build to identify and isolate and to do human clinicals with peptides from nature. Wow. So instead of them being synthetic chemical compounds from a lab, they're actually naturally occurring in nature.
Okay.
And instead of them having to run through an injection, they actually you can take them as a nutritional supplement.
Wow.
And so run it through the gut. And they're stable through the gut. And the human studies and clinicals and so on, as we started kind of getting into this, I was like, well, this is like the future of wellness stuff, because you're taking out, you're introducing peptides, which is a huge boom.
Yes.
But then you're getting people access to them at a much more affordable way where they can run through the gut versus through injections.
Yeah.
And that I was like, I'm in. This is going to be a big story.
Yeah.
And so we've been telling that story, and the response has been just off the charts, because
I could
whether
see.
your goal is like muscle gain, like protecting lean muscle. So you're 29.
Yeah.
At about age 35 to 40, we start to lose our lean muscle. Women lose it faster than men.
Yeah.
But lean muscle is so hard to build. Here's the way you want to think about it. Lean muscle equals youth. It like equals vibrancy.
Yeah.
Being active and young and fit is lean muscle. So you don't have to be a bodybuilder or a CrossFit champion to care about lean muscle. All of us should care about holding on to our lean muscle, regardless of your age.
Because it's really hard to build it.
So hard to build, and if you lose it, it throws off your whole metabolic balance, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's so hard to rebuild. So anything you can do to help preserve and build lean muscle is particularly really high quality lean muscle.
Yeah.
So we have a product called Fit that's designed to do that. It has methylated B vitamins. It has an ingredient called NR, which is a precursor to NAD, helps your body to produce more NAD. But that one is designed to help you to both preserve and build lean muscle. And it's such an incredible product. In fact, one of my buddies lives here in Utah County.
Yeah.
His son is either 16 or 17. He's going to be a senior this next year.
Yeah.
And plays high school football. And he sent me this picture today. He's all jacked up. You remember when you're 16, you're super lean, and then you lift some weights. You
I thought I had abs. They're just skinny abs.
Exactly.
Or what do you want to call it?
16-year-old abs, So this kid's put on 10 pounds of lean muscle. He looks fantastic.
Yeah.
And his trainer, he goes to one of those trainings where you have like 10 guys and they train the football players. His trainer is telling his dad, he's like, yo, what is this kid doing? He's like, all of his numbers are way up, his strength's way up, his recovery's faster.
And we all know what he's thinking. He's like, is it is it illegal?
Yeah. So we told him that, he's on these peptides. So that the trainer's like, yo, I want to be an affiliate for this stuff. This is crazy. Yeah. So anyway, so that's one. The second one is a product called Lean, which really targets problem area fat, challenging areas with your fat. So you have your lean muscles increasing, but you're losing the fat, because the goal is not weight loss.
No.
The goal is body composition. So it's like more lean muscle, less fat. So you change your body composition.
Right. Yeah.
You could have two people that weigh 160 pounds. One has a pot belly, one has six-pack abs. The weight's the same. What's the difference?
Yeah.
Their body composition's way different.
Yeah.
Then we have Energized and Focus. So I take Energized and Focus in the afternoon. They have peptides to help you both with your energy, so sustained energy, versus like adrenal pops up and down, and then also with your focus. So they're just really dynamic products.
Yeah.
And when that story's been, it's been so well received, because as people can get access to peptides, do it without in kind of in a different way with these bioactives versus the therapeutics. And again, I'm not putting down therapeutics. I think therapeutics are great. It's just you have to do it under doctor supervision, go get your blood work, all that.
Yeah.
And you have to cycle on, cycle off because they can become unstable in the system. Where with bioactives, you can take them for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Well, to kind of like hit on, just to give anyone an example. So what we were chatting about before, those are definitely, this year, I got my testosterone checked, and the combination of having a 1-year-old, not sleeping, not eating the best. Yeah, my testosterone was way low for a 28-year-old, a 29-year-old. That was like, I was not happy about that. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to dive into some research. I'm going to figure out how I can boost my testosterone naturally, if it was even at all possible. And that kind of led me to the peptides thing. Now, I've never heard of these naturally occurring peptides. So I guess, I got with this company, and it was online, and it was a very complicated process. That
complicated, takes a lot of
is
research.
Expensive too.
Expensive, lots of research, lots of time.
Yeah. And eventually, I ended up injecting, and it was phenomenal. I boosted my testosterone naturally, not through peptides, but through other different things. And then I had some peptides, but at the same time, one, I hate injecting. It's the worst thing ever. Two, you're right. I had to cycle on, cycle off.
Yeah.
As soon as I cycled off, I'm like, I'm not back to square one, but at the same time, I'm like, man, it's like once you feel like the benefits of it, the last thing you want to do is get off of it, but you have to. So what you're saying is, with this, because it's naturally occurring and you're not injecting, there's not a cycle to it?
There's no cycle to it.
Okay.
The therapeutic peptides can create a negative feedback loop in the body where they become unstable. So your body stops producing some of those naturally occurring stuff, and you just need to get off it so your body kind of rejuvenates a little bit.
Yeah.
Therapy or bioactives are different.
Okay.
Bioactives, so like we've had bioactive peptides in our bodies since we were little newborns. So colostrum from mother's milk.
Yeah.
Colostrum's a peptide, right?
Okay.
And so you're having that, and your body is used to the strength that comes from those bioactives. So this bioactive world is really, really interesting. It's really compelling. I look at it a little bit like when Uber came to market. So people that, like in the taxi cab industry freaked out about Uber.
Right.
So they went to the unions. They literally passed a law where it's illegal for an Uber to pull up to the airport.
Wow. Yeah, I remember
there was
that.
like you had to be so many feet outside of the airport to go get your Uber ride. Now, if you go if you went to Salt Lake International, there'd be no taxis.
Yeah, none.
And they would have a whole section for rideshare.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And that's what happens when like a new innovation hits. And so again, I like therapeutic peptides. I just think they're like different classes, right?
Yeah,
they're different segments.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes you some folks from the therapeutic world are like, well, they don't like it. Almost I feel like it's like the taxi cab industry. It's like, dude, it's just a better way for the majority of the population to get access to peptides. In this case, to do these bioactive peptides where they're not injecting them. For most people, to do that for the rest of their life is just a daunting ask.
Yeah, and that was the idea behind the testosterone. I didn't really want to get on TRT because I didn't love the idea of injecting myself forever. I'm 29 years old.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah, you shouldn't need that yet.
No, not yet. So what I'm curious is, what do you say to those people who out there that might hear what you're saying? They don't do the research. They don't hear the science behind it. They say, oh, well, it's just like another pill.
Yeah, that would just be an uneducated way of looking at it. And listen, like ignorance isn't bliss. Like ignorance isn't bliss.
No. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, it's
the most frustrating thing.
It's like what you don't know can, in essence, hurt you. In this case,
yes.
At least not help you.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
If your goal is to be fit, lean, energized, focused, these are like super supplements. They're not just another pill. They're like super supplements, like peptides. Here's another way to think about it.
Yeah.
If I said to you, have you ever heard of an antioxidant?
Yes.
You'd say, yeah, I've heard of an antioxidant. One of our chief science officer, he's worked with the NIH, he's worked at National Cancer Institute, he's worked with a multi-billion-dollar wellness company for 27 years as one of their. He ran 85 PhDs. This guy's he's a really renowned scientist. Yeah. I was chatting with him, and his whole thing is he's like, when we first had what's called free radical biology, so antioxidants neutralize free radical damage in the body. Right?
Okay.
People were talking about free radicals 25 years ago, 30 years ago. It was like quackery to people. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And by the way, it's interesting. Started at the fringe, went to the billionaire millionaire. It went to like the bodybuilders. Bodybuilders were doing synthetic antioxidants,
Oh.
like DHT, and they were like doing these synthetic antioxidants. Like, dude, I'm getting all in great shape with these antioxidants.
Yeah.
When they started realizing there's antioxidants in nature, with quercetin and apples and antioxidants in tomatoes, and they're like, oh my gosh, there's like all of like Mother Nature was the ultimate biochemist. Like she has all these answers.
Yeah.
Well, today antioxidants are normal. That company did tens of billions of dollars educating the marketplace.
That's
this
the
is what
first
they
step,
are.
right?
First
Educating.
step. Education. That's one of the reasons direct sales is so powerful is that human, like, yo, here's what it is. If I said to you, have you ever heard of essential oils?
Yeah.
You'd say yes, right?
Of course. Yep.
There's 25 years ago, that was quackery.
Yeah.
15 years ago, it wasn't. 15 years ago, there's the doTERRAs and the Young Livings of the world that went out there and told those stories.
Yeah.
These salespeople went out there and like, yo, this is really great stuff. Now we have, if you get a headache, our wives are like rubbing it on our temple or whatever. Dude, I got you.
Uh-huh.
And that's what happens with innovation. So to say it's just another pill would be missing where this whole thing's going. In 15 years, I don't think it will take 15.
I don't
But
think
in the
so
next
either.
5 or 10
Yeah,
years, when you say to somebody, have you ever heard of peptides or bioactive peptides?
Like, yeah, who
they're going to be
hasn't?
like, of course I have. I use them every day.
Yeah.
One thing that's kind of cool from our market positioning, if you think of electric vehicles,
Yeah.
who's the first company that comes to mind for you?
Tesla.
So Tesla kind of put their flag in the ground saying, we're going to own this electric vehicle space.
Yeah.
Right? Ford, GM, Chrysler, well, in the last 100 years, guess how many big car manufacturers in the United States there's been? 0. Because Ford, GM, Chrysler just crush everybody. They just own the whole market. So Tesla comes and says, not only are we going to do cars, but we're going to do freaking electric vehicles. There's no charging stations anywhere in the country. We got this. Those guys even wrote tweets like, we're going to completely smash you guys.
Yeah.
Today, Ford, GM, Chrysler all have electric vehicles.
Yep.
In fact, when President Biden did like a summit for EVs, he didn't even invite Tesla. And it was this total, like everyone's looking at him like, come on, bro.
Come on. Yeah.
Because Tesla
just because you
owns
don't like one
right?
guy that runs it.
You don't like Musk, so you don't invite him?
Yeah.
Here's the point. When you think of Tesla, you think of electric vehicles. When you think of electric vehicles, you think of Tesla. Yeah. They own that category. What we're doing with Make Wellness, when you think of bioactive peptides, you'll think of Make Wellness. When you think of Make Wellness, you'll think of bioactive peptides. It'll be a category space that will go on.
I love that. Well, going back to the first thing that you said, and I can absolutely see why this just aligns so well for you and why it's taken off so fast, is that you said that you are trying to have an economic impact into individuals. And one, like I said, peptides right now is pretty expensive, but two, not only are you educating people so that way it'll benefit their lives, but this is absolutely going to make an economic impact on them because one, it's not as expensive on that side of things, but two, on the other side, when you feel good, when you feel healthy, your confidence goes up. And if we're even just talking about sales and entrepreneurship, you will perform
100%.
better. People sometimes don't equate like the gym and muscle mass and so forth with like success outside of it. I'm like, how many fat, obese CEOs do you see anymore? Yeah. How many fat, obese, successful founders do you see anymore? Okay, cool. Maybe they're a founder for a little bit, but what happens pretty shortly after the company gets going? They hire a CEO, probably not fat and obese either. And I don't mean to be crude when I say that, but I'm just trying to make a point that, holy cow, if you can help someone on the physical aspect of their
100%.
life, it is going to bleed into every aspect of their life.
Yeah, so I was reading a study yesterday. Japan has less than 4% of the population is obese or overweight.
Oh, love Japan.
We have over 40%. Yeah. And here we try and do this like it's like we celebrate your being overweight. Where in Japan it's literally shamed. You're like, what? It's like culturally it'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
They don't allow you to do this because it's
need
not
help?
healthy for everyone.
Like,
Yeah, let's
what can
help
we
you.
do? Yeah.
Listen, my friends. Give yourself this gift. Like take a challenge. I tell people if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Here's the challenge. 1 year from today, you're in the best shape of your whole life. Yeah. Like give yourself the gift to take care of this body that you've been given. Mm-hmm. When you pack on that extra weight, it's harder on the joints, harder on your heart. It shortens your lifespan. You say, I love my kids, or I love my spouse, or I love my grandkids. Like give yourself the gift to get yourself in the best shape of your life to live another 10 years. And by the way, it's not just how long you live. It's like the lifestyle that you live as you live.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. So in other words, you don't want to have like your lower freaking back hurts and your hamstrings hurt and you don't have any energy all the time. The kids are running around. You can't go catch up with them. Like you want to live like young and vibrant and healthy. And then listen, whether we like it or not, when you show up. So Jay-Z says, I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. In other words, he is the business.
Yeah.
And you want to show up with your energy, your vibrancy. Like we all rub off on each other, the way we show up, the energy we show up with.
Yeah.
When you show up and you're fit, you're in good shape. You don't have to be, like I said, you don't have to be a bodybuilder. You don't have to be vain and out. But like you're lean and fit and you have good energy and good focus. Listen, people are they resonate with it. They buy from that energy.
Yes, they do.
And so when you show up and your hair's disheveled, your outfit's disheveled, you're overweight, you have bad breath, you're not taking care of yourself, your hygiene, you have this like, hey, what's up? Listen, that energy rubs off on people. People don't like being around it.
No, not at all. And honestly, the phrase, there's a phrase that's been going around for a long time that says, choose your hard. Or if you can choose your hard, that's a blessing. In my opinion, I like to say like choose your stress. Because right now in our society, everyone talks about stress, anxiety, all these different things. If you could choose your stress, for me personally, going to the gym and I guess like stressing my muscles, that's one way to put it, right?
Yeah.
Like taking my stress out in the gym in a way. When I show up for work and when I show up as a father and as a husband, I don't have that stress anymore. I'm not carrying that stress on my shoulders. So me personally, that's how I've learned to integrate working on myself into my life and why it helps me show up better for my family.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Good. That's a good repositioning, and I like that angle.
Yeah. Well, I posted on Instagram, I had a couple of people ask some questions, and then I also had some. And I'm glad that I could come up with that little phrase just a second, because I think you are the king of one-liners, which comes from sales, obviously. And so I had one or two, and then I'll ask some of these ones. You said, okay, so you've talked about leaning into weakness before and how to make your weaknesses your superpower. So what are some steps for people to discover their weaknesses they have or they might be blind to?
Well, so if you're blind to them, so we all have blind spots. That's why they're called blind spots.
Yeah.
You like don't realize it, One of the things I want to encourage you to do is give people that you respect permission to hold you accountable.
Wow.
The person that holds you accountable in your physical fitness may not be the person that holds you accountable in your spiritual life, because they may not be the same person.
Yeah.
The person that gives you ask to hold you accountable in your marriage may not be the same financial mentor you want.
Yeah.
But the point is you find people that are where you want to be and say, hey, listen, I'm giving you permission as an adult, because none of us love corrective feedback or corrective criticism, of like, hey, you should work on this. We're like, oh my gosh, okay, here we go. But when you ask for it, you're like, I want to improve. I'm looking to get better. The word humble comes from the Latin word humus.
Okay.
So humble is not downward subservient glances. Humble is organic, dark, rich, fertile soil. So what humble means is you're wanting to grow, you're looking to grow, you're trying to grow, like it's fertile soil, like you plant it and it grows.
Yeah.
So someone that's like looking to improve, wanting to improve, trying to improve, trying to get better, asking to get better, that's a humble person.
Yeah.
Right? So you want to say, get around people that lift you up and say, hey, listen, I'm going to give you permission to hold me accountable. Yeah. Hold me accountable for my public speaking. Hold me accountable for my marriage. Hold me accountable for my finances. Like if I'm acting like an idiot or if I have a blind spot, I'm asking you, like as a friend, to tell me so I make that blind spot not a weakness anymore.
I like that. Well, to kind of add to that, and I think that this will help for people who maybe are concerned with like reaching out to other people. There's the third rule, right? The third rule, where you need to be spending time with people who are at least a third of the time with people who are kind of beneath you, either financially, economically, in different areas of your life. A third of your time needs to be spent with people who are on your same, your peers, and then a third of time needs to be spent with people above you. So I'm curious, for people who are maybe they're trying to reach out to someone above them in order to be held accountable. As a person in your status, I'm sure you've had a lot of people reach out to you to try to be held accountable. What is that something that people should be afraid of, reaching out and reaching above, or?
I met you in a group where even in that group they were a third to you, right? Somewhere like behind you, as it were, on the path of life, or finances, whatever. Some were your stage, and then some were ahead of you.
Absolutely,
right? But you made the effort, paid the money, like you put yourself in that environment.
Yeah.
And because you took the investment of time, then you can like even our conversation.
Yeah.
Like all of that stems from you taking that effort and time. So, we want to be looking for ways to add value, particularly for people that are in essence further down the path than we are, and because a lot of they can't mentor you all the time, right? So if you can get into that circle, if you can get in there and have them be willing to hold you accountable, that's a pretty powerful thing. But to do that, I would see if I could add value. Where can I add value? Can I connect them to someone? Can I add value? Can I be a support? Can I wash their car? Can I carry their bags? Like, is there something I can do? In a sales environment? Get around the very, very best salesperson, the very, very best. Say to them, listen, I will buy you lunch. I know I'm brand new. I will buy you lunch. You need to eat anyway. I'll buy you. Do you mind if I ask you 3 questions while we're there?
Yeah.
Come prepared. John Maxwell wrote the foreword for my book. John Maxwell's Inc. magazine says the world's foremost authority on leadership, written 100 books. He wanted to meet John Wooden. If you remember, John Wooden was the UCLA basketball coach. At the time, he was the most winning coach in the history of NCAA basketball period.
Yeah.
He won 11 national championships. John Wooden, they called him the Wizard of Westwood. He was just freaking the man,
Yeah.
So Maxwell this goes back to preparation that we talked about earlier, being prepared. Maxwell goes to meet with him, and he had 5 pages of legal yellow pad notes. Wow. It was a 10-minute meeting.
Yeah.
And so he went there prepared.
Yeah.
And he goes like this. He goes, hey, on page 17 of your book, paragraph 3, you mentioned this. And Wooden, it like turned on his eyes, kind of like, oh, you're serious.
Yeah.
Like, you actually pay attention. You're not just here like wasting my time. Like, you did some preparation. Mm-hmm. The 10-minute meeting was a 5-hour meeting, just that session, and then Wooden became one of his great mentors.
Yeah.
One of Maxwell's great mentors.
Yeah.
It all came from Maxwell doing his homework, adding value,
Absolutely.
showing up with a ton of curiosity, a ton of sincerity. Man, you get around someone that's in essence further down the path than you, and you come with that level of preparation, they're gonna be like, all right.
And that's
you're
the
one
key.
of the people, like, you're him. Like, you are like you're taking this thing serious. I'll invest back into you.
Yeah. When I first heard that rule, it kind of put me off a little bit. I'm like, well, I'm supposed to spend a third of my time with people who are, where I used to be. But then what my mentor Jimmy Rex actually mentioned, he said, well, no, like, you're not reaching down to people who aren't ready. It's you reach out to the people who are prepared, who come prepared, who want it so
100%.
bad. You can see in them that they're going to be very shortly where you are now.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can help them, they're going to be shortly where you are now. If they ever get to the point where you are now and they become your peer, you're not doing something right, because you're supposed to be going to the next level as well.
Yep.
And so that really helped me put it in perspective for me. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and look, I did a sub for Santa this last Saturday.
Yeah.
And in essence, you're spending that night with folks that are struggling. So if you're not struggling, they're struggling. So that you're taking 33% of your time and pouring it into other people.
Yeah.
And that came from an experience I had when I was 15 years old. Went to church. The guy in Sunday school brought all these bagels, so we all went to his class. And he said that he went to Sub for Santa the night before. Told us how cool it was. My brother and I did a Sub for Santa when I was 15. My brother was 18, and I've done one for 29 years since. 29 years in a row.
Wow.
And I share that with you to say, it's the ripple effect of serving other people. And someone served someone 29 years ago that my buddy that brought bagels to Sunday school he went to, and it kind of planted into my mind, and I started doing it. And so that's that 33% where you can actually go serve people, because I was in a situation in my life where my mom was a single mom, and we had a church leader that actually gave her an envelope. We weren't going to have Christmas. And the church leader gave her an envelope and said, this is for your family. She burst into tears, like, I've been one of the 33%.
Yeah.
And so it's like paying that back to people. You're pouring into that person that could use a little bit of a hand up.
Well, you've said, and I've loved this phrase, you say convert the hurt, right? So that's something that obviously hurts in the past. That's something that is deep rooted in you, right? Coming from where you came from. And so kind of converting that and then turning it into something that's a weakness, a positive, a strength to help other people in the future, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of us, we go through really painful times. People say painful things. We have really painful, you're betrayed. You go through a challenging relationship or a divorce or a bankruptcy, or something where you're just like, oh my gosh, you feel like it's all over at this point.
Yeah.
All that pain, it can either destroy you or you convert it to fuel. And it, like, instead of destroying your dreams, it drives your dreams. And you're like, I guarantee I'll succeed now. And you go from revenge will only burn for so long. Like Tom Brady, was the 199th pick. He had a little bit of like, all right, going to freaking show you. A little bit of chip
Yeah.
on your shoulder. That only burns for so long.
Yeah.
If you win 1 championship, 2 championships, 3 championships, like, does that still wake you up in the morning after you won 4? If you won 5, 6? What wakes you up at that point is legacy, the vision, the mission, the purpose, the reason for existing, the reason to add value to people, like the reason of what, you know, you're really are being the one in your life, right? You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. That's when you keep getting out of bed. That's when you keep moving forward.
Well, I mean, you've been saying these things for a very long time now. So in the past year and a half, though, you've been having to apply it in your own life,
100%.
right? So how has that been, applying kind of these things that you've been teaching so long? Like, hey, you know, you're not a part of the old company that you started anymore, and you're starting new. Has it been pretty surreal?
So funny. So surreal. So going through, you know, that was the most painful, for sure, the most painful business time of my life.
Sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure. You know, I was with that business for, 11 years. We did billions of dollars in revenue, and you get a termination email from a law firm you never heard of before. You're like, what has happened? No phone call.
Crazy.
And so that was a grinder. But what's interesting is I literally had to ask myself the question you just said. I literally said to myself, I'm like, do you believe all the stuff you've been telling people? Like, are you going to eat your own cooking?
Yeah.
And because it's easy to say that life's happening for you, not to you,
Right.
when everything's going great.
Yeah.
So someone listening right now, and I say, hey, life's happening for you, and you're like, no, I don't think you understand. You don't understand what I'm going through. Mm-hmm. It's easy to say that when it's going well. When it's not going well, it's hard to say, life, this is all happening for me. You know, you lose your entire income. To validate your termination, they drag you through the mud and try and like publicly, shame you or something. You're like, what is happening? Man, it doesn't feel like it's happening to you. I look back now, though, the whole thing. A friend of mine called me. She said, I got a good word for you. So what's that? This would be good for your audience, particularly those of you that are really struggling. She said, trust the redirect. Like, trust that God's in the details of your life and he's redirecting you for good.
Yeah.
And I remember when she said that, it really hit me like, okay, I'm being redirected. This is about a week or 2 weeks into it.
Yeah.
And I look at it now and what we're doing and what's happening and the movement we've created, all of that happened because of that redirect.
That's phenomenal. Well, kind of going back to the roots, and we'll probably end on this last question that someone submitted. They said, what are some of the key things guys who are making, low 6 figures, 100 to 200,000 can do to get to the next level?
Yeah. So wealth building is 3 steps. Number 1 is you want to maximize your income. In other words, make as much as you can. So we'll come back to that in a minute. Number 2 is you want to minimize your expenses.
Okay.
Most people, when they make $1, they spend $1. In fact, most people, they make $1, they spend $1.10.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You want to create a gap. So you make $1 and there's a gap between how much you're spending and how much you're making.
Yeah.
And then number 3 is you want to build cash flowing assets.
Okay.
So if I'm making, in this case, 100, 200 grand a year, question number 1 is, what can I do in my current job, profession, etc., to make more, to maximize my income? So is there things I can do? Like, could I tighten up my sales skills?
Yeah.
Could I build a team? Maybe this next year I'll be a manager. Like, is there things I can do to go from 120 to 200, from 200 to 280, from 280 to 400? Like, is there things I can do? Can I start a side hustle? Like, what can I do to maximize my income?
Yeah.
Right? What skills, what attitude, what personal development, like, what do I need to do to get great at this? Like in the top 1%.
Well, I have a question about that too. And I think for sake of time, we can maybe just focus on this first part here, because I think when it comes to like cash flowing assets and saving, I know you've done a lot of information on that. So you can easily go and find more about that. Well, I'm curious, kind of applies to the audience a little bit better too, is a lot of these guys are making pretty dang good money, and they know, hey, if I just put in more effort, more work, I could technically make more money.
Yeah.
But then they really struggle with this balance of like, but I also kind of need a life.
Yeah.
I think with like sales guys in this capacity and entrepreneurs, time is money. Literally, like, you are trading your time for money. A lot of people don't convert their time into assets that make them money and so forth. So for sales and entrepreneurship, when you're kind of the one driving the ship, what would you suggest, like, if they're battling between putting forth more effort to make money and also having a little bit of balance?
Well, so again, let's just say for this question that we're not building other leverage other ways. So we're not building it through our investments. We're not creating other forms of leverage, because that's really what I would tell you to do to get out of that hole. What you can do is you can improve. So instead of closing 3 out of 10, you razor sharp all of those sales skills.
Yeah.
and you just get your skills better to where you're closing 6 or 7 or 8 out of 10, right? And so in the same amount of time, you're more efficient, you're more focused, you're more productive. Most people are not too busy; they're too distracted.
Yeah.
Right. They don't have good focus, no good patterns. And then, so that'd be the first thing. And then the second thing I would do is I'd just tell salespeople, like, just see if you can create some discipline in your life. Do it with your spouse too.
Yeah.
Just be like, babe, like, build a vision of like, yo, we're going to have it all. Let's just build this together. Right.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go spend every dime you make, because that gap of having some savings, having, like, you're making dollars, but you're not spending it all, that nest egg gap, that's ultimately going to equal your freedom. Because there's sales professionals, you've seen this.
Yeah.
They have, like, just these freaking golden handcuffs. Like, every summer they have to go back out because they're out of cash now.
Yeah.
Or every year they got to go freaking grind and put points on the board just to, like, keep the lifestyle going.
Yeah.
Don't want to do that in commission sales. You want to, like, crush it, get razor sharp, get the best in the world at what you do, and then turn those dollars and create more leverage, and those skills, and create more leverage to where it's not just time for money, dollars anymore.
Yeah. No, I love that. And honestly, I feel like a lot of guys, they try to leave the industry, or they try to leave or pivot or do something on the side before they get really amazing at what they're currently doing. Yeah. It's like, listen, if you're not in the top 1% of sales guys yet, then you shouldn't be leaving. Otherwise, unless it's like completely career redirect, like something different. But you shouldn't be trying to, like, add to your plate unless you're in the top 1%, I believe.
Yeah. You want to bloom where you're planted, become the very best at what you do. And I tell people, you want to string wins together. The best way to create momentum, like right now, you're like, yeah, but I don't want to do this job forever. I don't want to do door-to-door sales forever. I don't want to do whatever it is. That's fine.
Yeah.
But man, be the very, very best you could be at that right now. The very best. And if the very best right now is 87,000 this year, cool. Go make 87 grand. Don't go make 52 grand.
Yeah.
Like, go make your 87. Or if you're the best that you could be, like, I remember as I was coming up, that very first sales company, I became literally the very best I'd ever had in 26 or 28 year history of the company. I was the top salesperson and also top manager.
Wow.
And my dad told me, he said, he goes, if you string wins together, he goes, success will find you. Like, opportunities will find you.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is it's this idea of be the one. It's like, I was the one in that company. Right now, that fishbowl was small.
Yeah.
I was making a couple $100,000 a year. It was awesome for that age. It was great. But I had bigger goals, bigger ambition, bigger things I wanted to do. I wanted to create more leverage and more impact and the whole thing.
Yeah.
But those skills that I learned and that I honed down, those helped me create all of the next season of your life,
Yeah.
So it's you're always doing more than you're paid for as an investment in your future. Most people don't do what they're paid for. They work under what they're paid for.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to do what you're paid for. I'm saying to always, and always isn't occasionally or when it feels like a good idea. Yeah. Always is always. You always do more than you're paid for as an investment in your future, and you're investing in this person that you were born to be. You're growing into this full potential in yourself because you're really giving it all you got.
Oh, I love that. And honestly, it kind of goes back to one of the first things we talked about with the leadership, where it's like, hey, if you are not at a point where you can become a leader for others, then you need to be led. And you need to go and you need to find someone, kind of going to the third rule as well. You need to find someone that can lead you, that can take you, can hone your skills, sharpen them to the point where you can be the top 1%, and then reciprocate that, become an amazing leader, develop that. And honestly, that's when you can start trading your time for dollars and you recruit and things like that. But it all goes back to the idea of develop yourself, right? Put more time into yourself than anything else you do in your life, which is what you just said. And you'll become a leader through that. And that's honestly how you can make the most amount of money, I think, in this industry.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that you're teaching sales professionals. This is where this is my whole heart, what you do.
Yeah.
This is, I got my whole base of my life. I have no college education. I have no professional background. So learning how to sell was literally like the whole foundation I built my whole career from.
Yeah. And I knew that. And that's why I want to have you come on so badly, because it's like you started in sales, but you've pivoted a few times. But at the same time, what you just said, you mastered sales first.
Yeah.
And then you use the techniques, you use the things to pivot and to add it to wherever you went. And eventually that's, I'm going to become a venture capitalist one day. And it's not if, it's when. And when I do that, I'm going to take the sales skills that I learned and I'm going to implement it in every single business that I combine with. And so,
100%.
and honestly, that's what you're doing with this new company of yours too. And it is going to be really interesting to see how you do that with like the affiliates program and stuff, because that is a little bit different, because you can't, I don't know if you can teach them sales directly per se.
We train them up for sure. We teach them how to make money online, teach them how to, build a brand on social media, teach them how to monetize the time they spend on social media, and teach them, as you know how it is, you're teaching them how to close and how to invite and how to have courage and how to have confidence, just all the stuff that you teach in sales. But I love that. I love watching someone's eyes brighten when they're like, I got this, dude. Like, I learned how to make dollars. Because at first, when you first learn how to sell, you like kind of hope it's going to pan out, and you make $1 and you're like, oh, that was cool. I'm not even sure I for sure made it, but it happened. You can get to a point where your skills are so good, you're like, I'm going to make $100,000 this year. I'm going to make $300,000 this year. I'm going to make $1 million this year, because like, I know this is going to take this much. Like, your skills are so honed.
Yeah.
That's a fun experience to be in.
Exactly. And you can even do what I did, where I said, hey, you know what? I made this much last year, and this year I'm actually going to make a little bit less, but I'm going to take my time and I'm going to put it into family. I'm going to put it into my physical life. And then I'm going to get a side project of fulfillment, for example. And I've talked about that on other podcasts, but this year has been the largest year of growth in my entire life. And I sacrificed some income to do it, but it wasn't ever a risk. People are like, oh, it's so risky when you do these different things. I'm like, when you get really, really good at sales, for example, or what you do, it's not ever really a risk. It's kind of like a calculated risk, but hey, I know exactly what I need to do to make the money that I need to. And so I'm going to kind of convert my time into other places.
Yeah, love that.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
What an honor to be here.
I really appreciate it.
The great work you're doing.
I mean, your book released a little while ago, but Be the One.
Yeah.
And then as far as your company goes, would it be best for them just to
you can DM me.
reach out through you?
MakeWellness.com. We have affiliates all over the country. But you can DM me, and I can get you more information on what we do and how we do it.
Awesome. And I don't know how the affiliate project works, but all I know is I absolutely support what you're doing. The idea of peptides has helped me phenomenally this year, and the way that your company is doing it, I'm excited to jump into it personally.
Appreciate it.
Definitely going to be reaching out
Excited
and
to get
getting
you on
that in me. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again.
Okay, man. Honored to be on with you.
Appreciate it. Yeah.